So our first panel in the afternoon session is on the very pertinent topic of diversity and inclusion. So please put your hands together for our panel moderator, our very own Shruti Dewen. Shruti is a core member of the IIM Alumni Network Executive Committee. She's also an alumnus of IIM Indore, the class of 2008, and in her day job is a digital products lead and director, technology consulting at PwC. Over to you, Shruti.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing great. We had an amazing session with Ms. Indra Nui, and now I'm feeling extremely excited to be here to be talking to a set of eminent leaders on a very important topic, which is diversity and inclusion. It is a vast topic, diversity and inclusion, but it's very core. Diversity is all about the ways we as people differ, be it our age, gender, nationality, backgrounds, even the way of thinking. And inclusion is about ensuring that these diverse set of people, they are all given a voice to be heard, and they are given equal opportunities, fair treatment, and to make sure that we are all here together as equals. So to talk on this topic, without much ado, I would like to start inviting our panelists on the stage. Our first panelist for today is Dr. Moza Suwaidan. Dr. Moza, it will be great if you can join us on the stage. Dr. Moza has 20 years of experience in IT, strategic planning, project management, quality and performance management. In her current role as Director of Strategy and Innovation at Digital Dubai Authority, she is managing and delivering strategic projects. Dr. Moza, you're welcome. Please have a seat. Our next panelist here is our alumna, Rashmi Malik. Rashmi Malik, please come on stage. Rashmi is an alumna of IIM Ahmedabad, batch of 1981. Post her MBA, she came to Dubai in 1992, and she has led several corporate strategy and governance projects across the region. She was head of strategy at NBD and closely involved in the merger and integration of the two iconic banks and formation of Emirates NBD. We are really excited to have her here today. She's been very closely working with the alumni community. She was also the president of the IIM Alumni Network in the Middle East. So thank you, Rashmi, for joining us. Our third panelist that I would like to call on stage is Nandan. He's the group CEO of Network International. Nandan has more than 30 years of track record of successfully building and growing businesses across several markets globally at leading institutions like MasterCard, Amex, and Citigroup. So welcome, Nandan.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Moza, Nandan, and Rashmi for joining us for this panel. We are here to discuss about diversity and inclusion. In past couple of years, the world has changed, and we all people, we have been living under various restraints, but the pandemic has also brought the entire human race together to solve a common problem. People are looking now to the leaders across the world, across different areas like medicine, science, business, politics, and even technology to find solutions and to help us move towards a future which is better and inclusive. And increasingly, the leaders are now expected to be the ambassadors of diversity and inclusion, right? So in this conversation today, we have our panelists here whose careers are spreading across decades. So I feel very fortunate to be talking to them on this topic. The key areas that we look to cover today would be to understand, get a view of the top from our leaders, understand what diversity and inclusion strategy they are looking at, also to hear about some of the headwinds, or so to say challenges that the leaders in today's date are facing when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And most importantly, I would like to discuss with the panelists the key actionables that organizations and us as individuals can take from here and go out there to improve diversity and inclusion in our society and in our workplace. So if I could start with you, Dr. Moza, first. You are heading digital transformation, being in your current role at Digital Dubai, and you are involved in such strategic projects, like you were in the paperless strategy for Dubai. So having risen over these 20 plus years into such a leadership position in a sector which is so male dominated, what has your journey been like, and what do you think has been the key reasons for your such a phenomenal successful career?
Thank you so much, first of all. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. It's such a privilege to be amongst the elite and a lot of professionals from different domains. Coming back to your question, basically, forget about being a woman, forget about the differences between us. Working in a technology field has its own challenges, right? It's a field where whatever I studied probably 20 years ago in my university is very much different from what I'm practicing today on ground, right? It's one of those industries that changes overnight, changes not only in bringing in new technologies, but even in the operating model and the way we do things, 20 years ago we operate waterfall projects, now we're talking agility and different ways of work and different methodologies and different strategies. It's really a challenging environment to be in, and being consistently on the top of things and really always being relevant to the industry. On top of that, the nature of what we do as technology professional is being 24/7 available, right? This is not a job where you should be 7 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever. This is being 24/7 on all the time, because all the businesses, and I'm sure everyone who's working in their own organization have being the backbone of that organization as well. In addition to the core business of the organization, if there is no IT, probably they won't be able to operate. And I'm not talking about big organizations, even the small ones. Imagine grocery store. They still use IT. Everyone uses IT. We use IT as individuals as well. So it's very much a core becoming, rightly so, becoming a core partner to every businesses around us. How did I make it? It's been 20 years in this being really loving what I do. And the reason why I'm saying, I think a lot of the previous speeches also touched about that. It's not only being relevant and working hard, it's loving what you do. I love being an IT professional, and I also love being a mom, and I'm trying to be good at both. In addition to, of course, the challenges in the industry, the challenges of a woman also puts another layer on top of that. In addition to my responsibilities as a professional, I have a household to take care of. And because I love both, I love doing both jobs very well. It's not easy, and it's been 20 years to reach to this position. I've went through a lot of different challenges, different levels of challenges, but is it possible? Absolutely possible. We are privileged to have such a great leadership here in the UAE and in Dubai to really support us becoming such, in such positions and empower us to make decisions that are good for both our businesses and our families as well.
Thank you, Dr. Moza. So the message seems to be continuing from what we heard also from Indra Nooyi, that it is absolutely not easy to rise to the leadership position, and also that it is important that the society around us is very empowering for us to be able to make onto that path. And while we have examples of leaders like Dr. Moza, Rashmi here is on stage, and we have so many leaders in the room today with us, we cannot deny the fact that there is still a gender gap. The moment, if you look at the top positions of leadership in organizations, the number of women is still very few compared to men. So Rashmi, you have a long, illustrious career spreading across decades. So we would like to hear from you. What are the key challenges you think are there? Why we still have so few women leaders out there, and what is really holding the numbers back?
Well, we have wonderful educational institutions, and we see an increasing number of young women coming out of these educational institutions and starting off in their careers in corporate life. But as you quite rightly said, as the pyramid gets steeper and steeper, we see more of a fallout, and we see very few women at the very top positions, and Indra was one of the exceptions.
Yeah.
I think there are many roadblocks that women face. And the first, of course, is family, which is the obvious one that everybody knows about. A lot of women choose to or are forced to fall out of the working life, and then when they try to get back, they lose momentum. They have, the other male colleagues have moved ahead, and they have a lot of catching up to do, and it's not easy. But I think there are other roadblocks as well. There are times when women don't get the work that the women are doing in the organization does not get recognized enough, and they don't get promotions. And I feel that it's something that Indra also said, that you have to work hard, you have to do well, but you have to work extra hard to create, sort of prove your credibility in the organization. But once you do that, you also have to be visible to the right people. It's not just enough to be good. It's not just enough to work hard. You have to be able to market yourself. And a lot of women find that stressful. And in fact, as you go up the pyramid, that stress becomes even more. So then you find that there are fewer and fewer women at every level, and then you come to a situation where you're the only one. That becomes even more stressful, because then you're in this men's club and you're trying to play by their rules, and you're trying to be a leader like them, and that's not always easy. So I think it's always important to have your own style. Just because you're empathetic doesn't mean you're weak. You can have a completely different leadership style from men. If you try to compete with them on their terms, then you might have a losing race. So you've got to be comfortable with yourself, comfortable with what you're doing, comfortable that you are contributing to the organization, and you can get the organization to understand that. Yeah. I think that becomes very important if you want to get to the top.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to sort of touch upon one or two things in my own personal journey.
Yeah.
Again, similar to what Indra said, it's very important to have a supportive family.
Yeah.
So you have parents who encourage you right from the beginning that you should be working. You have to be lucky enough to have a spouse who's very supportive. I even had in-laws who were very supportive. And then in the organization that I chose to work with, I think it was a conscious criterion in my mind that even when I interviewed at IIM, et cetera, that I was looking for an organization where there was a culture of openness, learning, and women being treated equally and being given respect. So if it was a parochial organization, I was not interested in even interviewing with them. So that is a conscious choice that we can make, and organizations can change because they see that reflection. And then the most important, of course, is to have good mentors at work. So if you're one of the very few women, I was lucky to have a couple of good mentors who believed in me and who always supported me, because there are times when you do get cut down. And I've had situations, especially here in the Middle East, when as a consultant, my boss was told, why have you put Mrs. Malik on this job? Didn't you have anybody else? And they had to stand up for me and say, no, we put the best person on your job because we believe that you're an important client. And that's always stayed with me, that kind of support. So that's important too. Right?
Thank you. Very insightful to hear from you, Rashmi. And as Rashmi was rightly saying, that organizations now, they are putting their foot down, and if they are seeing their clients or anybody in organization trying to not have women in the team by the virtue of being a woman, organizations are now saying that no, it's the talent that we are valuing and not the gender of a person. So having said that, I think the diversity and inclusion, where we are today and where it was maybe a decade ago, it has changed a lot. Nowadays, there are many multinational companies which are openly publishing their workforce diversity numbers. So it is changing, and we see diversity and inclusion being part of corporate strategy for almost all big companies now. And Nandan, you coming from heading a very large company which has its footprints across 40 countries, how would you tell us that what kind of strategy large companies are making to improve diversity and inclusion? What metrics matter when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
Okay, I'm not sure I'll get to the metrics part, but first of all, Shruti, thanks for including me in this very august panel. Pleased to be on the stage here, probably as the most diverse participant in my panel. But also want to give a shout out to the Alumni Network for giving Network an opportunity, Network the firm an opportunity to be part of this afternoon and a very engaging conversation. It was a pleasure to hear from Indra, and I think that that whole session was moderated very well. So thank you for that. So Shiva, you pulled out some great insights there. So thank you for that. So Network, I think I've been blessed. I've come into Network a year ago, and I've just completed a year. Network has always had a very conscious focus on diversity and inclusion. Reflecting, I think, the ethos of this country. Network is born in the UAE, as many of you know. And the UAE is the poster child, in many ways, in more than many ways, for diversity and inclusion. I mean, the country has made such great strides because of the collective efforts of people from so many parts of the world. I mean, you truly feel in the UAE, you are in the center of the world. And many times when I talk to people and I say, come on over to Dubai, I just say, come on over to the center of the world, because it feels like that. So, companies like ours are inspired by the environment in which we operate in. And our own workforce comprises of, I believe, Hind is here. She's our HR head. And by the way, we're blessed with great female leadership. Not that diversity is male-female ratios, but Hind, who's here, Muna, who's here, who's our marketing director. Hind is our Chief Human Resources Officer, and Jay, who couldn't make it here but wanted to be here, are part of our very compact leadership team. And obviously, we hope that there'll be more and more women rising from the organization. We have a very talented pool of second-line female leadership. Since we are talking female leadership, we'll come to, diversity. But look, we pride ourselves. We're a payments company. It has to be aligned to business objectives at the end of the day, right? And our business objective is to serve as many verticals as we can to move money electronically from point A to point B. Financial institutions are one arm that we serve, and we serve pretty much the Dubai government. Digital Dubai we're proud to be of service to them, and we serve a very wide array of sectors. And so for us, diversity is making sure that we have on our teams people who bring experience and bring skill sets from multiple sectors. As you said, we also do business actually in 50 markets. Coincidentally, and we'll tell you this, we have 52 nationalities on our team, right? So again, it's a reflection of the geographies that we serve. I'd say diversity is also ensuring that there are enough diverse points of view expressed within the organization so that the organization can stay balanced in its outlook to how it does business. So to us, I think that's the most critical element of diversity, is finding that balance and finding a point of view that best serves all the stakeholders, but most importantly, the economies that we serve and the businesses that we serve. I think you talked about inclusion also, you referenced inclusion. And again, we treat inclusion as a very simple, with a very simple lens. For us, strength of thought or, bright ideas are not the preserve of only senior management, right? In fact, case in point, probably completely the opposite, right? It's folks who are close to the customer, who are close to the ground, who know how business is done, that bring a wealth of ideas to the table. Any business that is not inclusive, any business that is not in the business of hearing all the great thinking that is coming from the field and from being customer-centric is doing itself a disfavor. And so we as a culture, we try and promote as much open conversation as possible. We love to, kind of almost have very vibrant debates, because it's the vibrancy of the debates that gives us comfort that we're actually listening to all perspectives versus jumping to conclusion and getting on with life. So I don't know if I've answered your question. I've steered off metrics because I'm not sure I have the metrics in my head anyways.
So how do you enable the vibrant debates? Like you mentioned that you're enabling. So it looks like you're already onto that journey of having diversity and inclusion in your organization. So are there any specific measures that leaders out here, that they can take away as something that Network is doing to enable that?
I think I would anchor it on thoughtful risk-taking. it's a culture that, since you talked about culture, it's a culture that we like to promote. I mean, we've got our own values like any other organization. We call it the network way. And essentially, we think about, being open and transparent and doing the right thing in the right way as the anchor to how we do business. And sort of, when you use principles and you use values as your North Star and your guidepost, then kind of you can live with the fluidity that comes with it, right?
Yes.
Because then everything has to swim through the swim lanes of values that you have established for the company. So I think we try and establish culture and inclusion through our values versus through processes.
Right. I would like to pick on one point that, Nandan, you mentioned, that UAE itself is a melting pot of different cultures. We have people from so many different backgrounds coming together here to contribute to this extremely inclusive socioeconomic environment. And Dr. Moza, you are at the heart of transforming and digital transformation of this city, Dubai. What benefits do you think this being so diverse and inclusive brings to the people and the businesses?
Very good question, thank you. I think throughout my career, I've been always working with environments or work environments who have different, diversity of professionals. Diversity in the sense of backgrounds or, nationalities, gender, and even age. I've always seen that a diverse team would be the best team to deliver on complex situations, right? Because we think differently, and thinking differently is great. You look at the problem from different perspectives. You look into challenges from a person who have a lot of experience, but also a person who have lack of experience, which means lack of boundaries. He doesn't have anything in his mind to constrain his thinking. You look at it from what would a person, living his own life in UAE, being an Emirati, but also from a person who has been living in Europe and have faced different situations who have been solved differently. Having diversity always brings value to the organization, but also gives value to the person himself. I've been privileged to actually learn from everyone who I've worked with, regardless of nationality, regardless of gender, regardless of level, people who have been working for me or my superior or my colleagues as well. You find yourself in a constant learning environment, learning professionally and personally and being challenged and being supported. It's very, very interesting, way to work. I can't really, after these so many years, I can't imagine myself working with a group of people who looks exactly like me and thinks like me and, have the same experience like me. I don't think the outcome will be as good as having a completely diverse team. It's challenging, it's not easy, and as you all know, we've been going through teams that are formed beginning, of storming and then norming and all that and all those phases. But eventually, the outcome of that team would be something, superior in quality and in thoughts and everything else.
Definitely agree with you. The synergy that different people from different backgrounds can bring is not possible with just one homogeneous group of people. And we heard from Nandan that companies are becoming more inclusive and it's becoming part of their culture. But when it comes to individuals, Rashmi, especially from you, I'd like to understand, how have you seen the scenario of inclusion evolve, and what advice would you like to give to individual, us women, to make our own way forward? While organizations are changing, how should we change ourselves in the changing world?
First and foremost, I think in the last 30 years, there's been an enormous change all over the world, but specifically here in Dubai. As Dr. Moza has just said, there's been sort of so many initiatives that the Dubai government has taken, which has been so inclusive. They have, fostered this great melting pot of cultures, and we see that reflected in almost all organizations we have here. And the number of women, since we're talking specifically about women, number of women working in organizations has increased so much. It's amazing to see. It's really gratifying. So I already see a lot of change happening. It's also happening because industries are changing more from the manufacturing kind of male-dominated kind of shop floor to the more digital, the IT kind of organizations, service organizations. As it is, service organizations tend to be more diverse because they have to reflect the customer base that they serve. So yes, the changes are happening, and I see a lot of you young girls here today, and feel very proud of all that you guys have achieved, all the IIM alumni here. In terms of advice, as I said earlier, first and foremost, if you happen to be in an organization which you'd feel does not believe in diversity, I think it is your role to impress upon them how important diversity is. And somehow the ethnic diversity does get reflected in the organization because of various reasons. Gender diversity does not automatically get this thing. And as I do believe, I know Nandan said that you don't have any specific metrics, but I think as at the hiring level, at the talent acquisition level, we have to make a special conscious effort to not have any biases creep in, any gender biases creep in when we are doing recruitment. How many of us can put our hand on our heart and say, between candidate A and candidate B who are equally good, I'm not choosing person from gender A over gender B. Yeah. There are biases which are within us that creep up, at the subconscious level. So I think as women who are in the workforce, as we get more and more senior, we have to impress upon our organizations how important it is, show them other organizations that are doing so much better because they are diverse, and how they're benefiting from there. As individuals, I feel mentorship is very important, and there is, we just heard Indra Nui, but there's also Sheryl Sandberg who's written Lean In, and there's a Lean In org, and she has created this allyship program, okay, where you basically, if you see somebody not being treated fairly in an organization, you stand up for them. Now that person can be a woman, it can be somebody from another race or ethnicity, or diverse in any other way, So very often, for instance, you feel somebody's ideas are being shot down just because they don't belong to the club. Yes. And people do it inadvertently in a meeting or something like that. Somebody's ideas are not being taken seriously. So you stand up for them. You try to push their agenda. You try to push their ideas, especially if you find them meaningful. You can always sort of be a mentor if somebody wants to come to you for help. If you are in a position to be able to find them some ways of advancing themselves professionally, you should try and do that. I think it's very important to support and sponsor and mentor diversity.
Thank you, Rashmi. Very interesting. Earlier, Rashmi mentioned how we women need to stand up for ourselves, and now you closed by saying that we also need to stand up for others out there. If we want to improve diversity, then we need to not only, as women, always speak up for ourselves, but also speak up for anybody else who we think is not treated equally and fairly. We are running out of time, but before I close, one last message, if Nandan, you could give any advice to the leaders out there to improve diversity and inclusion.
You're kidding me, right? These guys are far more accomplished at what they do than I am, so I'm not sure I'm in any position to give them advice, but I will say my learning from spending times at, in venerable institutions such as Citi and MasterCard and now Network is that, an open culture of conversation and an open culture of respecting every idea that's put on the table, and to a large extent even celebrating things that didn't work, that encourages people to bring their ideas to the fore and, at least give it a shot, right? Yeah. And large companies have that luxury. Not everything's going to succeed, and not everything should succeed. And only the best idea should not be the one that gets sponsored. You have to try the ones. Without trying, without failure, you're not going to get to repeatable successes. So I think that, to me, the culture of wanting to support each other, be there for each other, whether it's gender specific or across ethnicities or across geographies. These are very collaborative organizations, and Their success has been driven by collaboration. I think many of us who started in these organizations at a very young age would testify to the fact that we never felt the hierarchy. We felt like we were empowered to take decisions. We felt like the businesses that we were in were our businesses, and that's why we could take the liberty to, get stuff done. And admittedly, we made a lot of mistakes.
Yep.
But those mistakes were quickly forgotten, and we celebrated the successes. We sunshined the failures, but we celebrated the successes. And we're trying to do that at Network too. It's like I said, it's an organization in 55 markets. Decision-making cannot be the preserve of 11 people sitting in an exco in Dubai. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to get things right. So it has to be, we have to embrace, and we have to accept, and we have to follow what we believe are the right ideas that are coming from the field, and then see how it goes.
Thank you.
To me, that's inclusion in its finest form.
Thank you. I see that we've run out of time, but before we go, thank you so much to our amazing panelists for coming here and sharing your insights with us. It has been an absolute pleasure to be talking to you. And a big thank you to all the people sitting out here in the room with us, our eminent leaders. As Nandan said, we have such a great audience with us here today. So thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So I will now request Ms. Srimati Damal, Pan IIM Alumni Network ExCom member, and I am Lucknow alumnus from class of 92, to kindly present our tokens of appreciation